So here I've got my all cleaned up Enya 94 cycle parts, and today I received the gaskets, the muffler, and yesterday I received the bearings I need. So now I can begin reassembling this engine. Things I'm going to start with here are, I'm going to start with putting the bearings in the front housing. So as you can see, I spent the money to get these from Boca, and apparently Boca sent shielded bearings. These are the Econo bearings. Now obviously the rear bearing, I'm going to have to take the shields out of both sides of that because I can't have that be shielded. So if you've never done this before, it's pretty easy. Just get a little screwdriver or something in there, just kind of pry that up and pop that out. Just make sure you don't go too deep. It's a lot easier with a larger size bearing like this. Now you'll see that there's pre-greased in there when they're, you know, shielded like that, but that stuff will get washed out. In fact, I may even just wash it out with some alcohol. Now the front bearing is obviously a shielded bearing also, but this time I'm only going to remove one of them. The shield, the side that's the shield I remove is going to go facing into the engine and leave the front as the shielded part. That way this engine, or this bearing, front bearing, can get proper lubrication. So there we go there. So now all I'm going to do is probably just put my press up here and push these bearings in. Let me go turn the camera off, get prepared for this, and I think I'll even bring my heat gun in here so I can heat this up a little bit. Okay, so I've got my press up here, my bearings, some air tool oil, Marble air tool oil. I'm going to put that oil all around in here and kind of spread it around this bearing here. Now, since I didn't bring my UV glove in, I'm going to heat this up just gently on here and hopefully try not to touch it too much. This may not really be necessary, but might aid in the insertion just a hair. I want to make sure that I've got that pretty flush. And there you go. Front bearing is in. Now what I'm going to end up having to do is probably going to put this on here and push it down a little bit more, because there's a lip in here that C-clip has to go into. So there's a ring in there that the C-clip goes into, and it should fully seat. I think I felt it seat. Yep, there we go. So now our front bearing's installed. Now we just do the same thing for the rear bearing. Get that kind of lubed up a little bit, keep this up a hair. Now there's nothing else that goes inside this engine, so the crankshaft goes straight in there after this, so that's why I can just go ahead and put both these bearings in just like this. Again, let's make sure this is as flat and flush as possible. Just kind of drive that in. Now, that's a nice bearing. Alright, so both bearings are installed. Now what I can do is kind of test fit my, I don't know if I'm going to have to press this in or not. I may. press that in just a hair too. Bring this back up here. And this time I'm going to have to remove my piece of wood. Just set this right down here and carefully press this. And now that's seated. And that's pretty much all there is to installing bearings in an Enya 90 engine. Now the last thing I would do here, that unfortunately I wasn't prepared for, but I can get prepared for here quickly if I can find it, is get my C-clip installed. Probably should have done that first, but now what I do is, instead of using those C-clip pliers, I just so happen to have a nice set of just round nose pliers. So let's see if I can make this look easy. Sometimes it's not quite as easy as it looks, or it's harder than it looks. There we go. C-clips in, front bearings retained. This thing's ready to mate. So the next task is to get this crankcase ready to accept the front housing. And to do that, I need to install this, I can't recall what the name of this part is, timing shaft, timing wheel, I'm not sure exactly what Enya refers to it as. But it's all cleaned up, ready to go. This bearing is in good shape. I'll just throw some more oil on it. Crankcase nice and cleaned up. So this thing, you just kind of drop in place and then just push it all the way in. And I can see by looking down in there, I don't know if you're going to be able to see or not, I can see that it's fully seated. So next is get ready to accept the piston. So I'm going to lube this cylinder sleeve up real good. Lube this piston up real good. Now this ring was completely compressed in the piston head, so I had to dig that out. It's nice and free now. Now this piston is symmetrical. Well, it doesn't have a front or a back, but the connecting rod does, and there's an F embossed on here, which I don't know if you're going to be able to see or not. So that F is going to be having to face the front of the engine. So what I'm going to do is just kind of drop this thing in place. And bring this down. And then just with my thumbnails, start trying to compress that ring, while at the same time trying to exert a little bit of downward pressure on this thing. And then it just drops into place. Now one of the things you got to be careful with is the connecting rod can go back and forth in the piston head, and if it's back, it could be contacting on this thing, making it tough to, make that go down. So you want to make sure your connecting rod is facing forward when you go to slip this thing down. So now the next tricky thing here is when you go to mate this thing up, you got to try and line up the hole in the connecting rod and the hole in that timing gear. But before I get too far there, I've got my screws here. I got my tool, and I've got my new gasket. I haven't trial fitted this gasket yet, but that's what we're about to do now. This gasket I'm just going to gently place over the front housing, see if it fits properly. Looks to be a good fit. So now let's move these screws out of the way. Let's see, I've got this at approximately top dead center. Now on the Enya front housing, there is no orientation. Now on an OSFS 90 engine, there is an orientation of the front housing, but on this Enya engine, this the 80, the 60, there isn't. So here I'm just going to, and all I'm really concerned about is just engaging the crank pin of this into the connecting rod here. Then I can rotate things as I need to. Let's see if I can at least get it. Now, I didn't trial fit the bell front housing first, which I probably could have done. Now see, I've got it engaged in the crank pin, but it isn't engaged in this. Okay, my battery happened to die right when I was in the middle of doing that. So anyway, I've got the front bell housing on, but it's just not engaged fully in this drive pin. So I'm trying to figure out how I find that. Otherwise I'll probably just have to pull this thing off completely again and try again here. Okay, there we go. That's lined up and in. Now my gasket's out of place. Now there we go. Got the gasket lined up. These screws have been sitting in my parts dish with oil on them, so. Now I just torque even this size fastener with just my index finger and thumb like that, and if it hurts my hand, I've exerted enough torque and there's no way I can over torque those screws. So there we go, our piston's going up and down, our timing shaft is going up and down. On to the next step.